Everyone, welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. Today I have my dear friend Phil with us. Phil, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. So, Phil Randazzo, born and raised in Chicago, moved to Las Vegas in 1992. So, I believe now I'm a Nevada resident after 34 years. It's been great to see the city and the state really grow in positive ways. And in 1994, I started an employee benefits business out of just a need to help people navigate the whole employee HR benefits issue, Jeff. It's confusing. There's a lot of compliance around it. And it's one of the largest expenses now for employers to be able to offer, benefits for their team.
And just to make it interesting, I did a little bit of research, and Nevada's got its own special rules and things that some states don't have, but Nevada has, and vice versa. So, so you've been doing this for a year or two now. I won't do the math on decades because we were both probably much younger back then. What are some of the big things you're seeing in the benefit space right now that are tripping up the small businesses or the businesses that are coming to you for help?
Yeah. I had black hair when I started this business, Jeff, and I don't have much black hair left. I'm super fortunate as an entrepreneur outside of the benefits side. So I own a handful of companies with a total of, I think I just counted before this interview, it's 391 employees total. So I'm not just a broker who's just trying to pitch a product. I'm an entrepreneur and a business owner who's trying to solve people's problems and issues and cost. Compliance is probably one of the biggest issues. We just did an audit on 119 of our clients. Most of them passed, but there's some certain things that we just weren't aware of. Contract employees that don't show up on the benefits side, employees out of state. There's a whole bunch of different things that can trip people up, because if you have an employee in California, you have to follow California regulations when it comes to HR issues. And California is probably one of the most strict, and New York states when it comes to that. So compliance really can cause an issue. And we have, the Department of Labor here, which can be kind. And they can also be strict if they feel like an employee has been treated misfairly. So hiring, firing, we have a whole support system when it comes to compliance checklist. What our clients do with that, we'll support them taking it to the finish line. And some just want to take some risks. So we try to help educate them on what those risks could be and how that could affect. But that is the biggest issue. Then the other biggest issue, Jeff, is a lot of business owners just like, oh, I got a 22% increase. And then the broker will say, yeah, I already kind of checked around and there's nothing else. And then they're like, all right, I'll just renew. And then we'll step in because they're curious. Like one of our prospects just got a 38% rate increase. We got it down to 11. I'm not saying 11 is great, but 11 is sure better than, and they had 27 employees. And they were upset at their current broker because he was just being lazy. Not all brokers are lazy. So again, I approach this from a standpoint of an entrepreneur and a business owner. And I don't think many brokers do that.
Well, and I think that's a key distinction. Being an entrepreneur, exactly, if there's a 38% increase in insurance and benefit costs, there's a cut somewhere that you're not going to enjoy. So I think, and again, I think in a lot of spaces, and I'm not picking on anyone in particular, insurance in general, people tend to think, well, it is what it is, I'll pay it. But it's like you put more thought into where you're going for coffee today. Why wouldn't you put a little thought into where you're sourcing your benefits?
Yeah, so a couple of things on that, Jeff, is I'm fortunate now that I have more of a team than I had when I first started. So when I had 12, 15 employees, my office manager was the HR director, was the compliance officer. I mean, she was wearing 3 or 4 hats, and she was just, back then it wasn't as easy to to look up certain things now with AI. But yeah, people get busy and sometimes they're like, I'll just, it's like a subscription that goes up. It's just easier to keep it at the higher price. But also you said something else that was, I want your audience to hear this, is that sometimes they'll not only raise the premiums by 20-some%, but they'll cut somewhere. And we don't know, unless a broker points that out. We reviewed just yesterday a renewal from a very large company, and the renewal is like 60-some pages. And there was little minor changes, but those minor changes were big. And so the other thing that we do is we approach the whole healthcare, you talk about coffee, right? Someone might go get a cup of coffee and they know exactly what it costs. And if they want heavy whipping cream or they want something else, no one cares when they go to the doctor what the end cost is of a product. So, when someone goes to the doctor's office, Jeff, they'll pay a $20 or $30 copay. They don't care on the back end what the insurance company pays.
Yeah.
It could be 200, it could be 400, it could be 600. So we actually are now putting in products that make the employees of these companies better consumers. Does that make sense?
That's actually, I think there's two topics I want to pull out. So number one, I'm going to call it shrinkflation. I'm sure there's a better term specific to the industry, but I think what I'm hearing is benefits are decreasing, but also it's the fact that, as you said, if I'm a $20 copay, I'm concerned if it goes to 25, not what's the back end that I don't see. Exactly. And I think a lot of medical, I'm going to throw the whole industry under the bus. They've lost sight of what things actually should cost because nobody's holding them accountable, including the employees who are using those benefits and then saying, well, I want a raise, I want this, I want that. It's like, well, the costs of administering your basic benefits have gone up, so we need to look at the whole package, right?
Yeah, no, that's well said. And we'll get some calls sometimes from some of the casinos, right? And they'll say, I need to shop for my own insurance. My copay went from $15 to $20, and now my prescriptions went from 8 to 12. And I'm like, you want to not have your employer pay for your insurance to save $5? And I'll ask them, how many times a year do you go to the doctor? Yeah. And they go, well, I don't go very often. And so when I talk to employers, Jeff, I'll be like, here's areas where we can increase some of the cost for the employees, right? And they're minor. And then figure out how we can improve on some of the other things so when they have major stuff, they're not out of pocket $13,800. Like my personal plan is $13,800 deductible because I'm healthy. I want to self-insure. I don't want to give the insurance company more money. So those are the things that we try to educate them on. But you're right. There's some challenges right now with the healthcare, and not that it's shrinkflation. It's a lot of the insurance companies want to maintain their profit because they have shareholders that they need to satisfy. So that's where the challenges come in.
Well, and if you ever want to have a really eye-opening conversation, talk to the actuaries who make those tables, because again, I think a lot of people miss out on the understanding of insurance as a whole, that it's the average cost. And of course, insurance companies are not philanthropists. They're here to make a profit. They have shareholders. So I think it's nice and valuable to have people like yourself and your team that are holding them accountable and saying, okay, sharpen that pencil a little. I feel like you could do better on this.
Yeah. And in some cases we can. Right? If it's a small group, we have very little leverage. That's why on certain situations, we have, at least a half a dozen associations where people can join. So now all of a sudden you have leverage of maybe 3,000 members on the health plan versus 7. And so we look at all those things. It's very, Jeff, and I don't even, on a new prospect, we'll use a little bit of AI because we don't have any of their their data, their dates of birth, their socials, all that. Like, we are very protective of not putting any of that in to speed up or maybe save us some money. It's not happening in my office. And I know other large agencies who throw all that stuff in and they're like, oh, it's protected. It's really not. I'm not an AI expert. So, but what we'll do is every proposal we do takes about depends on the size of the case, between 6 and 9 human hours. Humans reviewing, looking at, comparing, contacting, going through any medical issues, making sure that if a key employee or any employee has some ongoing care, make sure that their doctors have continuity, right? You don't want to switch plans and have an employee who's being treated. We have a client, unfortunately, who had a cyst removed from their colon and it leaked and they're in septic and now they have double pneumonia. And so we're treating that, very seriously, because that bill already is, I think, well over $1 million, like well over. And so we're navigating that. So we use tools when necessary, but maybe I'm old school and it's the gray hair, but I like humans to be able to contact other humans within the insurance company and negotiate the best we can.
I love that. And I think that's the piece. A lot of AI, and I'm a fan of AI in certain use cases, but I think it misses nuances and subtleties that a human will ask a follow-up question, whereas AI will take whatever first answer and say, okay, here's what I want to give you. So I think having that human in the loop is a good approach. Now, one thing I don't know, being Canadian, I don't fully grasp the American system. However, I'm curious and I want to learn. What are people paying you as the broker to be representing them and working with these insurance companies on their behalf?
Yeah. So we don't get compensated from the client. We get compensated from the insurance company. And that can range anywhere between 1.5% to 3.5%. So there's a cost to that. Now, we have some very large groups that we're down at the 1.5%. And we just disclose that. Like, that's one of the things that bothers me, especially with large groups, that brokers don't disclose what they're being compensated for. And then a lot of brokers will push off the work to the insurance company. And I don't know if you've ever called an insurance company, but it's, the first 9 prompts, you're trying to get to the right language. And then there's 17 other prompts. And so that's a nightmare for people. That's why they hire brokers. They might as well just go direct to the insurance companies. It's the same premium, by the way. If you go direct to the insurance company, you pay the same as with a broker, but there's no level of service. So we actually have phone numbers that people actually pick up when we call.
So just to underline that, because I think that's a fascinating concept. Same fees, but better service.
Same premium.
I can't imagine why anybody in their right mind would say, I'm going to go straight to the insurance company.
Well, there's a misconception on that. They feel like they can get a better deal. And I don't blame them for thinking that, right? And then honestly, there's some brokers, I've been at this for 34 years, Jeff, that they're better off going direct because they're basically going direct anyways. They're not getting that support. Like, we've taken over businesses, right? And the commission is stopped for the other broker. And literally 5 months later, the broker will call, hadn't talked to the client since the last renewal, and say, hey, you switched brokers, why? And the HR director's like, for the same reason it took you 5 months to figure out, we switched brokers because you haven't called us.
Yeah, the morbid curiosity of how long is it going to take for them to notice?
We contact our clients a minimum of once a month. We do audits on their billing. We're not perfect and the insurance company's not perfect, but if we term an employee and it's still on the bill, if it's on there for longer than 90 days, in some companies 60 days, you can't get a refund. So every month we're emailing, let's do an audit. Who was termed, who wasn't? Most of the time we'll do the terms and things and they'll go, oh my gosh, we have a new hire and she's pregnant and she's not showing up on the bill. And somehow they didn't get the enrollment to us in the insurance. So those are the things we do, because otherwise it's just a snowball.
And I'm guessing that the poor pregnant person in this example finds out when she goes to see her doctor, and the doctor's like, "You're not insured."
I'm telling you, Jeff, it happens. And now for those companies that want the connectivity, right? So we can get them directly connected with us and the insurance company. So not only do we get notice that Sally is new employee and she's pregnant, we then contacted the insurance company and make sure, and then we usually contact Sally and go, we have your enrollment, we're getting it processed. Do you need any help integrating between where you're at now? And she's like, I'm pregnant, I'm due in 3 months. And I went to the pharmacy last night to pick up a prescription and they said I wasn't insured, right? And so we want to help navigate that. And that just relieves a little bit of stress. And it also shows the employee that their employer actually cares about the employees. Like, who gets a welcome call anymore? You know what I mean?
Well, I'm just thinking out loud, and for you, there's a benefit of working with you because you're going to be monitoring the policies. But the other piece I'm going to pull out is they're not talking, when they work with you, they're not talking to an insurance company. You're farming it out and shopping it out to get them the best coverage for their needs. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. And sometimes, Jeff, we'll call if an employee has an issue and it might be a challenging issue. You know, what I tell people, like, so here in the States, we have in-network doctors, facilities, pharmacists, and we have out-of-network. And let's say you go have an outpatient surgery, like I just got my knee replaced. And there's this person who walks in and goes, hi, I'm your anesthesiologist. And you're like, oh, great. Count down to 100, right? And you don't even get to 100 and you're out. You wake up a month later, you get a bill for $3,000 and it's out of network. So now we have to negotiate that bill for our clients. We typically get it down by a big percentage, but those are things that we educate our companies and employees that when you have a procedure, here's an SOP, here's a checklist. Make sure the anesthesiologist is on the list. And also, here's a link. Make sure they're a good anesthesiologist. Like that, for most surgeries, that's the most important person in the room.
Yeah.
They got to wake you up. So again, it's minute, right? And the other thing, Jeff, that we do is when we enroll, especially new companies, is we do a ton of education around it. Hey, listen, y'all get one physical a year for free. Includes all these things. But when you make the appointment, and this happened to my wife last year, when you make the appointment, you have to confirm it's for your annual wellness appointment. You can't be on a diabetes medication or a blood pressure medication, go to your doctor and say, oh, while I'm here, can you do a physical? It's coded as, you know, a A1C check or whatever the diabetes is. And then they get this $1,800 bill for a wellness. And they're like, you told me wellness was free. So these are little things, but they mean a lot, Jeff. And all of a sudden you get a bill and you're an employee and you're trying to navigate and you panic and right? And then you don't pay it because you don't have the money, and then you get collections, and then this whole snowball thing happens, and you're like, that puts stress. And their employees really not at work.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out how they're going to get bill.
It's funny just thinking about talking to insurance not just one, but multiple ones. My blood pressure's rising. I'm going to go get some meds, but I can't imagine a typical business owner, because you got enough things on your plate. I can't imagine saying, sign me up. I want to call 5-6 insurance companies and not only get quotes, but compare the benefits of those quotes. Because again, I'm guessing, what comes across as looking cheaper might be more expensive in the long run if things are not covered, or, as you said, the out of network surprises are I had a friend who had a baby and got a bill for $1 million. And I was like, gosh, I don't know if I like the kid that much.
Yeah. There's no return policy as on children.
Yeah. Is there like a refund, a warranty?
Yeah.
you're spending the college fund before the kid's even in this world. But it's knowing what's covered, what's not. And again, there's a scene. I have kids, so I watch cartoons. In the movie The Incredibles, one of the main characters he's a superhero. He's Mr. Incredible. And his day job is he works for an insurance company, and his job is to keep people from making claims. And his boss fires him because our clients under your care have a surprising knowledge of our bureaucracy. And it's like, it's not a joke. It's a real thing.
Yeah. You said something earlier about business owners, right? And you and I have businesses, and we're trying to navigate everything, right? From fuel costs to inflation to maintaining good employees to how can we leverage AI to unfortunately replace a couple employees because that's just how to be competitive. Unfortunately, sometimes I'll go to bed at night just before I'm ready to fall asleep. I'll think of something I can worry about, right?
Typical entrepreneur, yes.
Right. And so when it comes to, an employer choosing a broker, it's a trust level. People can say anything they want to try to get the business. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And some of them do, and some of them don't. And so we'll literally, because we know people are shopping. Like sometimes they'll call us twice thinking there's another Nevada Benefits. And they're like, we want a quote. Or I'm like, oh, Jim, we just talked to you a few minutes ago. Like, oh, I thought I was calling another broker. Hey, listen, you can go shop all you want. Like you're going to get, it's a commodity. You're going to get the same rates. And I can tell you how great we are, but look at our reviews. We have, I think, close to 300 authentic reviews. I look at some of our competitors, Jeff. They're not authentic. Great service. Love them. Amazing. Highly recommend. Our reviews are, man, Laura's amazing. She took the time to do this for me. And Christina, and like, they're all named. And, we're not offering Starbucks gift card for people to write review. They want to give us a review because they know it's going to be helpful for us. And I would rather not spend money on marketing and spend money on putting people who can help people in the team. And some companies spend 60% of their budget on marketing, and then they have 2 service people.
And wonder why they always have to keep marketing, right? For what it's worth, Phil, I've read your reviews, and it's like reading it's like a little soap opera, because you get a day in these people's lives, and they literally, like, there's tears, there's joy, there's relief, there's frustration, there's always the thank you to Christine or Laura or whoever who saved me, because contrary to what most insurance companies think, the average human being doesn't spend their days wondering how to navigate their bureaucracy. They're just trying to get from A to B in their day and do their job. And I love that your team makes it easy for people, because I've been with a pregnant woman at 6-7 months. You don't want them stressed. They don't. It's not good for anybody if they get stressed. And so I love that you and your team are helping them. And your reviews, I've seen some of the other reviews. It's like 1 or 2 words. Great, recommend. Like, they don't even say I highly recommend. It's just recommend. Whereas yours are like little novellas. It's like piecing together days of our lives. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And some of them overshare. Some of them will overshare, which is great. And I respond to every single one of them. I don't know if you see, like, I respond and I'm like, I truly love my team. I'm super fortunate, Jeff. I don't need to go into the office. I've really done well over the 35 years I've been in business, but the team is awesome. Like, the energy around them is great. And I hear them talk to clients, and they're compassionate. And sometimes I'll hear them talk to insurance companies, and they're not compassionate.
They're sharks when they need to be, right?
They're very kind and they're very polite, but sometimes you really need to advocate for your clients.
Yeah.
You just do.
I love that your team does that. Now, I'm going to ask a strange question because I know you have an office in Reno and in Las Vegas. And I also know from the research and the people I know, those are two very different communities. So
Yeah.
what's the biggest difference you're seeing, between Reno and Las Vegas as a bigger center?
Yeah, so I have my oldest son and my daughter-in-law and a grandson in Reno. So I spend quite a bit of time in Reno for selfish reasons. I wanna get to know my grandkids. We have no kids living here. People in Reno aren't super fans of people that live in Southern Nevada. Some of them are old school, some of them are ranchers. Like Reno used to be, 35,000 people not that long ago. And Reno is now the fastest small city in America. A lot of people from Northern California are just moving to Reno because there's Four Seasons. You have Lake Tahoe. There's a big difference. Like if you walk into a company in Reno with a suit or a sport coat, they're going to go, get out of here. Right? Like
they
just don't
know
do
you're
it.
from the city, right?
They just,
The other
they don't
city.
trust you sometimes. And
Yeah.
it's old school. There's a couple dozen families that have been there for generations. And I'm fortunate to know and work with some of those. And both on my nonprofit side, we have a military charity, and I've been, previous governors, I've been on the veterans board as a non-veteran. And so I spent a lot of time in Reno and I get to know the community. They're a great community. And now, it's almost like the people that are moving into Reno are overrunning in terms of population, the people that have been there forever. But it's great. There's a lot of rural communities, and boy, there's nothing more than I just like rolling into Elko or Tonopah or some of these smaller cities. And it's just like, one is they appreciate you coming to see them.
Yeah.
Right. And we're looking to build actually a team in those rural communities. So we might hire a military spouse in Tonopah and they'll handle all of that. Right. So they're local. They understand the communities. They understand the doctor networks as well, because that's different in the urgent cares and all of that. So our goal is to start, and we're interviewing, as you know, people in those rural communities so we can have local representation for them, which is a big deal.
I love that. Now we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but I want to bring to light American Dream U. So tell me a little bit about it and why it's so important to you and why you put so much of your heart and soul into American Dream U.
Yeah. So in 2003, the Iraq war had just started. I was watching protests on the TV, whether you believe the war was necessary or not. Our government in Congress, people were sending 18, 19, 20 and up young men and women over there to fight. And I saw this and I was like, wow, we need to show some type of support, especially for the families. That I can't imagine, like when you lose your kid in the mall or in Target or Walmart, even for a second, like you have that feeling like, oh my gosh, like a panic. And so that's when I started the foundation. And it really, those young men and women, I never served in the military. They're special, right? They're special. And so we've been at it for 23 years. We just celebrated 23 years. We really focus now on transitions. It could be military life to civilian. The other area that we're highly focused on is let's let these people start their own company. Let's support them. Let's help them avoid landmines and get them so that they can hire fellow veterans if they want, or military spouses. Yeah. And so, we've had, people can go to the website. We've done 170 plus events. We've served about 23,000 people nationwide. And it's just something passionate. And Nevada is, especially Northern Nevada, is a very, very big supporter of our military first responders. And so I don't do it for that. Like I just started it when I was, I don't know, I'm 57 now, whatever, 23 years ago. And it just rolled into something where all of a sudden I'm sitting and testifying in front of Congress in DC. I'm like panicking. I'm not a veteran. So I brought a, Green Beret veteran with me, and I got invited to the White House. I mean, they wanted to hear my thoughts because they knew I was in it not to make money. I funded it, never taken a salary, and that's the same approach I take for my business owners, right? Like when you go in with no preconceived notion of trying to sell something, right? I'm like, hey, if your broker's great, like this is a good plan. If they're returning calls, which is a novelty right now, then stay with them.
Sad.
I can share some different ideas, but I don't want to disrupt a good broker. That's not how I work.
Yeah. Well, and I can say this sincerely, knowing you, that it's relationships first, and I know you. If it's a fit, you'll say so, and if it's not a fit, you'll say so. So, I want to thank you. Now, Phil, where can people go to learn more about Nevada Benefits or American Dream U?
Yeah. So just Nevada Benefits with an S.com, NevadaBenefits.com, and then American Dream, the letter U.org.
I love it. Well, thank you, Phil, for taking time out of your day and sharing a little bit of insight into the crazy world of insurance with me.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you.